Hi everybody, Mrs. Bergman here, filming from my backyard. Hope everybody's doing good at home. Miss seeing everybody's faces. We are doing our first video art project today. We're talking about shadows, positive, negative space, and making abstract art from it. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be using shadows to create positive, negative space to trace and make an abstract art project. Positive space is the thing basically, and negative space is the space around it. So with a shadow, positive space is the actual shadow, negative space is the light around it. Just like my shadow here on the wall, I'm the positive space, and all the light around me is the negative space. What you need to do is find yourself a light source. We came outside for the best light source there is, which is the sun. When you're outside though, you need to kind of move as the sun moves. Make sure that you get an appropriate shadow on whatever surface that you are working on. If you can't find a shadow inside and use the sun, inside you can use a lamp, a flashlight, or another light source. Cast a shadow onto your paper. Hopefully the sun will not go behind the clouds. Otherwise we'll take us inside. But you want to get your object that's going to cast a shadow. We have my plant because it's got a lot of interesting spaces between it. And then you're going to find a surface with a piece of paper and make sure that that shadow, the sun's moving, so we're moving. You want to make sure that shadow is casting onto your paper. And you have the dark space, which is positive space, which is your shadow. You're going to trace all the negative spaces around it. And my shadow isn't the greatest because the sun keeps going in and out. So you can get a really crisp, clean shadow if you use inside with a flashlight because you can control that light source. You can't really control the sun, so we're just going to work with what we got. So we're going to trace all of the negative space around the shadow that you can see. Because this is abstract, it doesn't necessarily, it's going to look like anything when it's done. If your shadow is small enough, it might look like a plant, because I'm using plant when you're done, but this shadow is actually bigger than the paper, so you can't really make any mistakes here. You kind of do what you can see. My shadow is not very clear, so I'm tracing the idea of what the shadow is doing. You can also do this by tracing yourself or a friend or a body part or anything really that makes a shadow. So that is my paper. So it's all my positive. My positive space is all this space where the shadow was. My negative space are the shapes that I traced. When you pick it up, it doesn't really look like anything anymore. It's just shapes. Abstract and organic shapes. Organic shape is not really measured, it's just kind of has curves and lines. Geometric shape would be if we're doing squares, rectangles, stuff like that that you can measure. So I use a Sharpie marker because that's what I had. If you needed to use a pencil or whatever, use whatever you have at home. Obviously we're not at school, so we do not have lots of cabinets full of art supplies. I have them at home, but I'm an art teacher, so I have art supplies at home. I happen to have one of these art sets, and I've got everything in here: markers, crayons, color pencils, and you basically take your abstract design you've created here and do it however you're like. If you want to just do your negative space with patterns and lines in black and white, that would be awesome. You can color it all different colors. You can use gradients. You can use crayons on one side, pencils on the other, markers, patterns, draw pictures. Whatever you want to fill it in. I'm going to use crayons on the inside, and I'm going to use gradients, which is going from light to dark of colors. So you can do one color, press really, really hard, start by pressing hard, and then press lighter and lighter as you go, and the color will lighten up until you get all the way to white. That's that kind of color gradient. Okay, or you can do a color gradient where I have all of these different colors of crayons and they all kind of go in rainbow order. So I have light blue, dark blue, middle-ish blue, so I can do that too if I wanted to. So I could start with the dark blue, and then lighten it up, and then morph it into the next kind of color blue. You kind of blend them in the middle a little with light, and then you go darker, and then lighten that up and have it morph into this other color blue, and then get darker at the end. So that's another way of doing gradient where they actually blend into different colors. This one you have to blend it a little bit more so that they look a little more seamless. And like I said, this is abstract art, so yours isn't gonna look like mine because you don't have my shadow. And if it doesn't look perfect, it doesn't really matter. It's abstract art, and we're mostly just playing with the different concepts we're talking about. If you use positive, negative space, you made an abstract art piece, and you color it in, there you go. You follow directions, you have a piece of art. Especially with abstract art, if you make a mistake, fix it up and dress it up, or make it into a masterpiece. I made a mistake. I colored outside lines, but we're not going to worry about it. So you're going to keep doing this until you got all of your stuff filled in. I really like doing the light to dark using one color. So you do it dark, and then you just, it all has to do with the pressure, which is how hard you're pushing down with whatever tool you're using. So if you notice here, it's much darker. You don't see a lot of white between the color. And then the more that I lessen up on how hard I'm coloring, the more white you start to see between the color. And it gets lighter and lighter. So up here I'm going to start it being dark again. Shadow anymore, we decided to come inside, and now I have to figure out what to do with the positive space. The negative space, I chose to use crayons and gradient to color it in. You could have chose something different. Now I want to create a contrast between what I did with the negative space and what I'm going to do with the positive space. If you make them look too closely the same, it'll be harder to tell the difference between the positive and negative space. With the shadow, there's a very dark contrast. One is black, the shadow, and the other is white. I'm choosing to do black and white pattern in the positive space to contrast with the colors I used in the negative space. You can choose to do something different if you wanted to do the negative space all one color, positive space all one color. That's an option. If you decided to do the negative space with a pattern and the positive space with one color, that's another option. I'm going to put my pattern as the positive space, so all of this white area is going to be done with the pattern, and because it's just one continuous space, it's going to be all one kind of pattern. These are all chopped up in different shapes, so I was able to make them different colors. The pattern that I'm choosing to go with is like a scale, like a fish scale pattern. So I wanted to go from bottom up. Since this is going sideways, I wanted my pattern to go up and down. Once again, more of a contrast. So I'm going to start in one area and start with my scales. My scales are going to vary. They're going to vary in shapes, and they're going to vary in thickness of line to give a little bit more interest to the part.
by doing them different shapes and sizes too, I'm kind of taking care of the problem where if I wanted them all to look exactly the same, and later on in the drawing they started to get a little wonky, you would notice it more. Whereas here, because they're already varied, any changes I make in the sizes will be used. So as you can see, I got most of my positive space all filled in with my pattern, the scales pattern, and the sizes of the shapes all differ. I have large ones, small ones, big ones, wide ones. And right now what I'm doing is I'm going back and I'm working on the line quality. So line is one of your elements of art, and there's all kinds of different lines. Right now I'm working on the thickness, because for one reason, it gives it more interesting thing to look at. And another reason is when I went through and made the scales, there's some spots where I notice my line goes past where it should be. So an easy way to fix that, right here where that goes right past, is just thicken this line up a little bit. If I thicken that line up, it disappears. That mistake goes away. It makes it look more finished. Same thing happened here, so we're just gonna thicken that line up and it goes away. So I'm adding just a little bit of variety to the scales. Some of them have more lines inside them. Some have thicker lines, some are smaller, and it just gives a little bit more variety to your finished art piece. And works on one more of the elements of art that's part of this project. So here's my finished art piece. My finished abstract art. I used all of those lines back there to make the pattern in the background of the scales. And here are some information on the lesson we learned today. The elements of art we used are space, line, shape, value, color, and texture. The space we used was the positive and the negative space, outlining that shadow outside with our light source. We used line to outline the contours of the negative space. And I used line to make my pattern in the background. We used shape by creating these organic shapes, again, out of the negative space. We used value, which is the lightness and darkness of something, for the gradients in our negative space. I used shades, which is the darker, and tints, which is light, to create your value. We used color, green, blue, and red in our final piece. And we use texture. Texture is, this whole background here is texture. You use line to create texture. It's how something feels or how something looks like it feels. This is a scale texture, and it's a pattern and texture. They kind of go hand in hand. And the look that the gradient gives to these shapes is also a texture, kind of like a smooth texture. And what we created was abstract art, and the definition of that is modern art that does not represent images in our everyday world. It uses color, lines, shape, but is not intended to represent objects or living things. If you want to look more into abstract art, some artists to look into are Paul Klee and Vasily Kandinsky. Both of those artists are very famous for their abstract works of art, and both of them use a lot of color too. So check it out, try it at home. Send me pictures of your completed artwork. Remember, your artwork does not need to look like my artwork. You can choose to finish yours however you like. Send it to me. Let me see what you end up creating. Have a great day and see you guys soon.